right, good evening. As you can see, we have two guests tonight, but before I start rambling on like a weird old guy, let me start the recording and then we will proceed with the Liberty Talk.
The Constitution isn't just a document. It's a blueprint for freedom. We're breaking down politics at every level, exposing government overreach, and going where the mainstream media surely won't. Join us in defending individual rights against the bureaucratic tide. You're listening to the Missouri Liberty Report.
All right, folks, and we are back for another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. To those of you who watch on YouTube, Facebook, or Rumble, we appreciate your continued viewership. And those of you who listen out there in podcast land or at molibertyradio.us, we appreciate your listenership and continued support of the show. Also, don't forget, if you go to Spreaker and you look for Missouri Liberty Report and you want to be a paying supporter, it costs you a whole $2 a month, and that's way less than inflation. That's not even adjusted for inflation. We're just that nice. But if you pay that $2 a month, you will get to listen to these shows through Spreaker ad-free, because we do monetize this show as well. So if you want to get rid of those horrible casino ads or whatever you're getting, pay me and Brandon $2 a month, like we're hobos living on the street panhandling. I'm panhandling for the show. Anyway, all right, folks, we are very, very happy to have a couple of ladies here, Faith and Olivia, from an organization called the Ladies of Liberty Alliance. Now, sounds cool, and they're going to tell you way more about it, but what's cool about this organization is it isn't just creating ripples here in the U.S., it is a worldwide phenomenon. So, Faith and Olivia, good evening to you both, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So if you guys want to start out, whichever one of you wants to go first, no fighting, please. You can let us give us some insight on your on this organization, and we'll just I'm sure this conversation will just flow afterwards, but just give us the breakdown on the Ladies of Liberty Alliance.
Go ahead, Olivia.
Yeah, I'll go first, then I'll pitch it to Faith just because it's kind of natural. So yeah, I met both of you guys at the LP convention. I was tabling for LOLA. That's my role with LOLA. I'm the director of external engagement, which is just a fancy way of saying it's my job to go and table at a lot of conferences. So for a couple years now, I've attended just kind of the Midwest circuit of LP conventions. So obviously Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and now I get to add Arkansas and Texas to my list since I'm the regional rep for them for the LNC. So separate role. But yeah, so Ladies of Liberty Alliance, I think you kind of alluded to it. We're an international organization of women that are dedicated to libertarian ideas. We are technically one of those small L organizations. We're nonpartisan, which for me, I mean, I was able to work with so many people that maybe the big LP title made them a little nervous for one reason or other. And LOLA, there's a lot of people that were able to come out of the woodworks that were like longtime watchers, but hadn't jumped in yet. And LOLA was the thing that they needed to feel comfortable doing it. And so, so yeah, I was the Wichita chapter leader, I guess 2 years ago now at this point, and I got chapter of the year. And then once I got chapter of the year of the entire country, then I was kind of promoted to the U.S. board. And now my chapter is now run, not my chapter, Faith's chapter. I handed the Wichita chapter over to Faith. And she's doing a great job. So I'll just kind of let her tell you kind of what the Wichita chapter of LOLA looks like right now.
Thanks, Olivia. So winning chapter of the year was a great stepping off point, especially when we're talking to people who are like, what is LOLA? What do you do? It's like, well, thankfully you're talking to one of the best chapters. But we are a space for women that feel politically homeless, because there's a lot of times where we want to have a space where we can talk about liberty issues that aren't necessarily couched in political parties. And this is a great space for us to talk about those ideas. We don't have to agree on everything, but we have an 80-20 rule that we try to follow, where if we can agree on most things, that's where we're going to put our time and effort. and we're not going to worry about the things that we disagree on. And that's really resonating with women in the Wichita area. And we just had an event where we had 70 signups, which is boggling to me because there's so many women that just don't feel heard. They don't have a place where they feel accepted, and they're really looking for a place where we can talk about liberty ideas, especially when it comes to, oh gosh, some of the biggest ones that have come up, government surveillance. Kansas is struggling right now with another constitutional amendment. Women want a place where we can talk about the pros and cons of those without being put into a box and being vilified for having a certain opinion. So that's one of the best things about LOLA.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, and then I'll pitch it to you guys for questions. But yeah, it really is true. Sometimes it's not only women that like are already starting to think they're like maybe third party or maybe independent. Sometimes it's women that they know they're not going to agree with us in the big things. But what we're learning is they don't have anywhere else they can go and have someone explain to them this ballot measure. Explain to me. I literally had someone DM me the other day, and it was like, why is who's president connected to gas prices? So these are things that Faith and I talk about all the time, but women, I feel like they need safe places. And I say safe not in the woke way. I legitimately mean they are nervous to ask their questions and not get yelled at or made fun of or belittled. Like they want a safe place where they can literally be like, well, you know, why was McConnell bad? I never really heard of him till today. What's that all about? You know? And so we're able to have sometimes very basic conversations with women. And listen, they might turn into libertarians, they might not, but at least we're creating a space where we can have those conversations. And I'd be happy to have the one, if anyone's going to explain to them McConnell, I'd rather it be me, you know? So.
Brandon, you got any questions you want to lead off with, brother?
Yeah. So when you're talking about like you guys sound really good at recruitment, obviously. So talk about like the way you tackle some of the issues, like how you use this organization to like promote liberty or, advance certain goals of the group.
So I'll use the event that we were just at. We were in Chicago tabling for LOLA, and the stances that LOLA has resonate so well with not just women, with men. We had a lot of people coming up to the table and reading our stances on immigration, war, abortion, and the stances that LOLA has regarding those things. People read that and they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. And it does make sense. We are anti-war, and most people can kind of get behind that. And I think those stances really are the stepping off point for people to say, I would like to learn more about what you guys do, because this is really resonating with me.
Yeah. And I'll say, being nonpartisan, like we're not in it to push a candidate. We will never do that. We're not in it really even to push a party, to be honest. Like We're not here to recruit for the LP. We are serious about being nonpartisan. And one thing that I like about our stances, they do look very similar to like some of our national party planks. But when we say like we're a non-interventionist group, we say that under the context of knowing that like when something happens in a conflict zone, we have women on the ground there. And at the end of the day, like we're not here to choose a winner or a loser. We're here to stand with the people who are wives and mothers and daughters and are on the ground in that conflict zone. And like sometimes the U.S. doesn't have to have a stance on everything that happens, right? We have the stance that is peace and free market and all these things. But also, I have girls that I can call and say, what does Venezuela need right now? And that's something to me that's invaluable. Those friendships, hopefully, or at least those connections where if something happens, I can contact them. That's invaluable. We all know you can't trust the media. That's why we're here, right? Putting out our own content. So that's my favorite part, is having that international connection.
And this kind of reminds me of our conversation with Spike Cohen, right? With the You Are the Power. It's not a political organization. It's people from all walks of life coming together, seeing that there's something wrong with a piece of legislation or the Hernandez family and a lot of those examples. And they're just like, we don't like this, and screw politics. We're all stepping in to help out. And I think, listen, it's very easy to get sucked in because everything is so polarized nowadays, right? And it seems like every election that comes along is even more polarizing and even more divisive because of the language used and everything else. And as sometimes, even though I'm not going to lie, sometimes I want to lose faith in humanity because I see what's going on around me. I'm like, how do we keep buying this? And I think that's why organizations like yours, where you're not taking a partisan stance, you're just saying, hey, we know there's more people out here that are in this. And instead of saying, that's why you should join our political party or you should join this group or this pack, you're just like, we're going to stand here and talk about it and agree on most things in general, these principles. And it's kind of a really good way to spread the message of liberty because you're not trying to cram stuff down people's throats. You're just like, let's talk about it. And then, yeah, you know, I can tell that I'm much older than everybody here. And I'm just saying from personal life experience, finding that patience and figuring out that just when you talk to people and they're the way they digest information, if you just sit down with them for 5 minutes and go, I get it, but you have to look at all of this. Sometimes, you get people to pause and go, but I have had conversations with people. I think I'm set in my ways, and somebody delivers a message to me in a way where I go, whoa, I totally left that out. And even at 53 years old, my mind's been changed, and that's okay, right? So that kind of stuff is very cool to me.
Well, and I'm close. I'm 52, so I like to say liberty and freedom keep me young. But it's being a little bit older actually does give you a little more temperance. I find that I am more open-minded now than I ever have been. And I meet people my own age that are extremely close-minded. They don't want to hear any opinions that might ruffle their feathers. And I think that's why Lola and the ideas of liberty and the libertarian movement are so attractive, because it's okay to have your beliefs. But if you can't have your beliefs challenged and not be able to have like a cogent argument or discussion around that, then maybe your beliefs aren't as entrenched as you think they are. And I love that about meeting other liberty-minded people. We have really, really smart, engaging decisions and discussions. I mean, like at the end of the day, I want to walk away from a conversation. Maybe I make a new friend, maybe we disagree, but no one's mad.
I've really come a long way too, and part of this is just like Kansas losing one of our like long time activists that was with the party, and then also Lola kind of all happened at the same time for me. Where like I used to be, if we didn't agree on this one thing, I'm sure you guys could guess what it was. But if we didn't agree on this one thing that I used to think was like the most important thing for a woman in the U.S., like, that was something Faith and I really held on to. And if we didn't agree on that, like you were aggressing against me and my rights, and I didn't have time for you, right? But at the end of the day, like what I've learned and where I'm at now is it's way more important to me that, especially a woman, but anybody, it's way more important that that person feels comfortable having the discussion and having the disagreement and being able to do it in an intelligent way, even if we don't agree in the end. If we're able to, something they say like in couples therapy, not that I've been or anything, but is like fighting well, right? Fighting productively. And that's my ultimate goal now, is just that we can have, listen, if you're going to go toe to toe with libertarians, you better know your constitution. You better know your rights. This is not, we don't play, right? We have some very intelligent disagreements. And like they said, I kind of wouldn't have it any other way. So I have also come a long way. Not that I have quite as many years as you guys, but I feel like I've definitely changed from, I'm not too far behind, but I've definitely changed, I'd say, in the last maybe, I don't know, Faith, 3 to 4 years. I feel like I've really just not relaxed, but had a bigger priority in mind, which is the person in front of me. And that relationship versus every little thing, every little stance.
Right. 100% agree. Seasoning is good. We all get a little seasoned as we get older, but being open-minded really is the path. And I don't know how it is for you, Brandon, because I don't want to guess your age, but like the older you get, the more there is to learn and the more there is to experience, and you realize how much you don't know.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I feel like almost anybody who's been a libertarian or is a libertarian has to have some sort of extra open-mindedness, like naturally a part of them, because no one starts libertarian. You either started like, because most families aren't libertarian. Most families are Democrat or Republican. So you grow up leaning towards one or getting your news sources from their sources. And so, you know, you're fighting back years and years of forced ideology to come to libertarianism. So yeah, I actually just celebrated my 30th birthday, and my buddy got me this "We the People" sign behind me here for my birthday, which was pretty cool. But yeah, no, it is hard because even when this Iran war first broke out, and this was maybe like a couple weeks after the 13 soldiers had been killed, and I'm having a conversation with this lady who's like, because the Libertarian Party of St. Charles County was working it was a St. Patrick's Day festival in Defiance, Missouri. And this lady came up to me and she just said, because we had some of our information out, and she goes, "Isn't Bibi Netanyahu just the best?" And it's like going on this big long tangent about how we need to be in this war. So I basically I broke it down for her. I was like, okay, so American soldiers are over there fighting the Iranians to install like a new regime that we don't know who it is or what alignment they have. How many soldiers is that worth? And she goes, none. And I said, well, we've lost 13. And then she still kept going on. So I lost my temper a little bit. I was like, okay. I just said, okay, waved my arm just like that. I didn't say anything mean or derogatory. I was like, basically like that, have a good day. But I don't even think I got that in. I think I was just like, okay. And then she walked on. So yeah, I'm working on it too. I'm working on my temperament and trying to be more like meet them where they are versus right. You know, but it's, you know, I have my triggers. I'm working on it.
Well, and it's funny too, because on this show in particular, and we have a monthly guest, and Olivia, you may remember Tom Martz from the LP convention speaking on the Missouri Constitution. So he's our monthly guest. First Tuesday of every month he comes on. Their site, the group that he's a part of, the Locke and Smith Foundation, they grade every piece of legislation that comes through on its constitutionality. And it is mind-blowing how little of it is constitutional. It's about 90-something% unconstitutional. We have found that there are some Republican people here, senators or representatives here in Missouri, and we've played this. I found this neat little game to play now, because they will get on and they will talk about what a staunch conservative champion they are. And I go to Locke and Smith Foundation and I look for their score and I take a screenshot and I clip it and I put it in the comments. And then, so if I say something negative about whatever they posted, one guy makes these stupid GIFs all the time and he puts them up, and it's just ridiculous. And as soon as I go, oh, you mean your, was it 19.7% constitutional score? I'll put that in the comments and it shuts it down. He does not say a single freaking word to me the rest of the time. So we have found, this isn't very adult of me, I get it, but we have found it really amusing to cyberbully some of our state elected officials, because, you know, it's one of those things. Yeah. When you're talking to the people in the public, someone comes up to you, they're having a conversation with you guys, you want to be, I mean, generally you want to be civilized, unless you're being like literally physically assaulted. You're going to try to be civilized and get a well fact-checked argument in front of them that makes them take pause and reconsider things. Those people in Jefferson City, most of them, there are a few good ones, but most of them, you're not going to get that. So it's almost like between the politicians and the people, you have to change up your game. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy how we have to do this. But again, I just believe that if people sat down and really thought about it, I don't think most people really want to be lorded over by other people who don't even know who they are. I think that generally people, if they could just wrap their head around a few things, it would really make a huge difference in what direction this country could go, or even your state for that matter. You know, it's crazy.
I think Kansas is very similar. We have a lot of people in office that claim to have principles, but when you call them on the decisions they make, those principles seem to just, in a puff of smoke, dealing with libertarians, especially a few elected libertarians, which we have in Kansas. They're either very principled and they make good decisions based on our values, or they are unprincipled and seem to behave just like the other two major parties. So I think if we can come at a elected with a principled argument, not be too emotional, which is very difficult sometimes when we're talking about issues that affect us personally, they're either going to be principled or they won't. And so it's hard to lobby for things you care about with people that don't have any principles.
Yeah, I want to add one thing that you said there, because Brandon and I have I used to have a lot of people on who were running for state rep or state senate, and I would just ask them questions and I let them answer the questions. I don't we don't push back. We just give them the question and they answer it. And I can watch a live chat depending on who I'm interviewing or who we're interviewing. Sometimes a live chat gets lively about their answers and people are like, oh, why don't you do this? And I'm like, no, because I found out if you just have a free flowing conversation with these people, they will hang themselves because you hear so many canned responses. You don't have to goad them. You don't have to poke at them. You just ask them questions like the war on drugs or, foreign policy or taxation or whatever. They'll hang. If they're not really principled people, if you listen closely, you'll hear it. And that's the best thing, because I don't have to be a jerk. Brandon doesn't have to be a jerk and go like, you're lying to us right now, aren't you? We don't have to have a Sean Hannity argue fest on this show. We can just let them hang themselves. And that's the beautiful part about it.
I mean, we found that to be true on ours as well. We've had a few candidates on. We don't poke and prod. We ask very simple questions. And a lot of times just let them talk because they have what they want to say. And we're not here to promote a candidate. We're here to let them share with our audience what they care about. And it's pretty easy to tell which ones are going to do what they say and which ones are really good talkers.
Absolutely.
Well, we had one guy, we were interviewing one guy for a state rep position. He ended up losing his primary, but he was talking about how he wanted to eliminate the income tax. And this was 2 years ago before Missouri even tried pushing their plan through. And so we were like, okay, how are you going to make up the difference? Like, what are you going to cut or what are you going to do? And he said, we're going to make more arrests and issue more tickets. We're going to have the highway patrol issue more tickets. That was part of his plan for recouping the losses from the income tax, which, I mean, you can just, if you go back and watch it, my eyes light up. I'm like, no way he said that. And the comment section's letting him have it. And I don't think he's reading the comments at the time. Hopefully not. But no, we never really pressed him on it. I think we may have had a follow-up, so let me get this straight. You're saying you think there's enough tickets you could write to make up the difference, something. And but what's interesting when we've interviewed candidates, especially we've had quite a few now elected Republican state reps come on our show, and not a single one of them can really even tell me where they want to cut spending. Not one of them. And there's no way they all agree with our $50 billion budget and every, for me, I can list a couple things without even being that detailed. Yeah, we could cut back on this, or whatever. But it's funny having them in that position, in the position to actually lobby for it and try to get cuts from appropriations and things that they have no idea. No genuine answer to it. So I always think that's interesting.
We have on that note, sorry to interrupt, we have an issue that literally just happened. I think the news story I sent you, Faith, just went out so we supposedly have a libertarian mayor in Wichita. It's really our first ever Lino, and it's an honor, and we're happy to have a Lino finally. But what's happening right now is she has historically not voted in support of the budget because all the budgets increase taxes, which I actually love that. I love taking a principled stance. We're on principle. It's only one vote. It's not going to change it. I love that. But what's happening this year is her Republican and Democrat counterparts are saying, okay, where do you want to cut? What kind of budget would you support? What kind of cuts do you want to make? Which should be a libertarian's dream. They're asking you where we want to cut. And she says, no, I'm not going to, just on principle, it's just not going to, and I'm like, oh man, that's where I don't have to defend my Lino comment, because any one of us, if an elected that we were on a board of asked us, where do you want to cut? How much time do we have? Because let me
pull out the scroll.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's wild because bless her heart, we have really tried to support her, but you have to be able to stand on your principles. And if you can't even, you're the mayor, you know, the council takes its direction from you. I would love to see, like, well, maybe 46% of the budget doesn't need to be policing. Maybe we don't need robot dogs and drones and flock cameras and ALPRs on cop cars. Maybe we don't need drones as first responders. Maybe we don't need gunshot detectors. I mean, the number of surveillance items that we have just blank checked given Wichita Police Department in her tenure boggles my mind. And we're going to exceed revenue neutral this year. And it's like, maybe we cut there first.
So I heard a similar thing in the county that I live in about these drones being first responders. What are they even doing? Like, what is the purpose of the drone first response? Because it's not administering CPR, it's not pulling someone out of a vehicle, it's not making an arrest. What reason are they even giving you for why they need drones as part of the emergency response service? I'd never made sense to me.
Faith will be able to give you a specific, I think. But before that, I just want to say this whole concept is offensive to actual first responders. It is actually offensive that a drone could do their jobs. That is absolutely insane. And like, if people are going to have an uproar over Trump saying like non-essential workers, which was fairly also inappropriate, this is insane. This is not okay. And first responders in Wichita and Sedgwick County, or wherever you're from, should be standing up to that, because I think all they do is they kind of triage a situation. It's kind of like a 911-esque type situation where they're triaging as to what does need to go out, right? Faith, do you have specifics on?
Yeah, they really wanted to make it sound like if we have a drone as a first responder, and in Wichita, they put them in fire stations, which I think is very much about optics, because they're not going out if there's a fire and be like, yep, there's the fire. It's more about how many police officers do we need to have on site because there's some sort of danger. Well, then if that's the case, why wasn't there something presented that said each drone as first responder that we invest in, we're cutting 10 full-time heads or something like that? They haven't done that. They want to have I was just at one of our biggest events that we have in Wichita all year. It's the Riverfest. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's pretty big. And they had the drones out just watching the crowds, making sure that everybody was behaving and being orderly. There wasn't even an incident that they were called to. I was standing right next to them, and they were just taken off from the top of a parking garage, and just watching the crowd. That's not a first responder. That's surveillance. And so if they're trying to do that in your town, ask them how many full-time heads they're going to cut to for budget reasons. We're going to invest in the dock and the technology and the AI that goes behind it. How many heads are we cutting? They won't be able to tell you because they won't.
Yeah, at best case, one option is they're actually cutting officers. Another option is like Wichita, they don't cut anything from cops. Cops get everything they ask for. I have been attending Wichita City Council meetings for years. There's never a single thing. Okay, I guess they didn't get 3 robot dogs. They got 1, but they're gonna add the others depending how this goes. So I guess I'll stand corrected. But for the most part, they get everything they want. And like, I just want people to know, like Faith just posted earlier today, like the numbers for how many, like LA canceled their like ALPR, their flock camera contract. We are a smaller town than LA, and we have like more than them. Like Wichita is being over policed and over surveilled. We don't just have drones. We have drone nests, or what do they call them? Hives. Hives where there's that many drones they're deploying in the downtown area at any given point in time that they had to rent the top of actually the gas station Quick Trip gave them their roof, and they made a big thing about it. They did a ribbon cutting. I haven't been to a Quick Trip since. But like it's the ALPRs, it's the drones, it's the robot dogs. Like this is why, as a member of the Libertarian National Committee, I was so honored to be able to second our resolution that just came out against the surveillance state.
Yes.
Because I watched them add and add and add, and it's not going to go away if we don't make them. And this is what Snowden warned us about, right? Like we have to be the ones standing up to this. It's crazy. Sorry. We could go all day we get fired up about this.
Well, yeah, if you want the numbers, LA had 138 cameras. Wichita reportedly, again, this is what's reported. That doesn't include all of the privately owned ALPRs with like shopping malls and all that, 195, which means there's one flock cam per 28,000 people in LA and one flock cam per 2,000 people in Wichita.
So
Oh,
what
there
are
we
they?
go.
There's your map, and it shows Wichita. This is from dflock.org. 420 cameras in view.
And a lot of those, like the little cluster that you see just to the top left there, that's going to be like HOAs, private businesses, the malls. So that 400 number may also include some of the Raven gunshot detectors, which are also a flock. So when we say these are ALPRs, it doesn't include the ALPRs on vehicles, and it's also including all the ones that are privately owned, which as a libertarian, I don't want to tell a private business how to handle their security, but as a taxpayer, I absolutely want to tell them what to do with my tax dollars, and surveillance ain't it.
I remember years ago. Oh, sorry, John. One more thing on this, and then we'll pitch it to you. I'm just hosting here. I remember years ago when they were just putting in the gunshot detecting towers, and I pointed that out. How when they showed us a map of where they were going to put them, they're putting them in black and brown neighborhoods. So guess who's going to be arrested?
Over police.
Or accused and over police. And that was my issue a couple years ago before we even could mutter the words robot dog. Just on the detection polls, I was like, wait a minute. It's one thing if you want to use this. It's another thing if we're going to pick and choose what neighborhoods they should go in. You know, like it's bothered us for years.
I'm not even trying to be that guy or press that issue at all, but were they putting them in the areas where they had more gunshots though? Like
that's their justification. Yes. And in the comments, first, hi Tom, and second, yes, there are these pop-up pole towers that supposedly can hear. I don't know how they detect it exactly, but supposedly it's like a quicker response time if the pole picks up on it versus a friendly neighborhood person being like, I heard gunshots. So yeah, it's like supposedly a quicker response time. And yeah, Brendan, that's the justification they give. But these communities are already so over-policed. And sorry, Faith can say more.
Yeah, so the gunshot detectors look very similar to they're called Raven, and the ALPRs are called Flock. So lots of bird analogies, but they look very similar. So if you know what a Falcon Flock detector looks like, which you see them all over the place now with the pole, and then it has the solar panel and the little camera. Mm-hmm. The gunshot detectors are very similar. And matter of fact, you're going to start seeing them go up where they have a ALPR and a gunshot detector as well. So if they hear a gunshot and your car drives by, even though you may have had nothing to do with that, you are now a person of interest. And so there's a lot of things around the algorithm that they use to determine those things, which are very, very, very scary. And maybe your town doesn't have those extra things turned on, but it's very easy to triangulate your car, where it's been, a gunshot. They don't even have to find casings. It's so scary. I don't think people realize how close to Big Brother we've gotten and how easy it is for us to lose our liberty over some people wanting to feel safe. It's pretty scary.
I was just sitting here thinking, and I'm sorry for my dark humor, but when you talk about drone first responders, like, this is a horrible thing to say, and I get it. But what happens if, like, it's going and looking, like, say that someone's been stabbed, right? And the drone goes in and it's trying to take a look. What happens if the drone, like, drops out of the sky, just gashes the guy's forehead open? It sounds like a ridiculous question.
It's not. But I asked that exact same question.
Like, can you imagine having to answer that question? Like, well, he has a stab wound in his chest, and what's with the slit on his cheek? Like, that might have been a malfunctioning drone, but we're not going into that right now. You're like, no, we're going into that right now. You ran your drone into the guy's forehead after he'd been stabbed. Not cool. The whole thing with you're talking about that Riverfest. Dude, if I'm seeing drones flying everywhere around me, maybe I'm an oddball. I do not feel more safe and secure seeing drones flying everywhere. Years ago, in our, what we like so lovingly call the St. Louis Post-Disgrace. It's the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, but we call it the St. Louis Post-Disgrace. There was a big to-do about people open carrying. And there's this one little suburb in St. Louis where you go into this diner cafe and everybody's just sitting around. They're open carrying. And people are like, doesn't this bother you? And I'm like, if I go into that restaurant to eat and I see like 12, 14 people open carrying, I'm assuming no one's going to be dumb enough to walk in there and rob the place, because they walk in the door and like, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, too many guns, and out they go. I'm going to feel more secure in that environment than if I don't see anyone carrying. Now, I'm sure somebody might be concealing, but you're open carrying and there's a dozen people, chances are there's probably not going to be a crime happening, because chances are those people, generally, if you open carry, you're not a criminal. We know criminals conceal carry, which the concealed carry gun law always cracked me up, because it's like, well, criminals don't obey that. If they don't ever open carry until they pull it out to rob you or do whatever. So they get to conceal carry without a license. Why do I have to have a license to conceal carry? So yeah, St. Louis is one of those oddballs where people get really upset about it. And you're like, that's one of the most dangerous cities in America. I would want as many people as I could open carrying, saying that kind of crap is not welcome here. Go do that somewhere else.
I would feel more safe in that diner you just described than I do at the airport, or than I do in some public buildings where all of the security and cops are allowed to carry, but I'm not. I am not as a citizen. And I'd feel much more comfortable in that diner. And Kansas is a state where you can get the concealed carry, like the license, but you also don't have to. I personally did not, because I don't need the government's permission for one more thing, right? But in the states where you have to, I fully understand that.
Olivia and I were part of a march that we did for another constitutional amendment years ago. And we decided to have our libertarian bros show up and be our security. And as one of the event coordinators, I had a lot of people coming up to me like, oh my God. And it's like, well, do you want me to have cops protect us from civilians, or would you rather have people that we know and trust to be watching out for us? They wore vests, they open carried. We had 0 incidents. There was nothing happened. And I think people really learned. It was a good learning environment for a lot of our more liberal Wichitans, that open carry doesn't mean gun violence. Open carry means open carry, as long as you're not brandishing.
Yeah, after the whole Ferguson thing here in Missouri went down several years ago, we had some Black Lives Matter people like calling businesses locally here to see if they could protest or whatever, and a lot of businesses were like, no, because we saw what happened on the news. And one of the local officers was telling me about it, and I said, listen, if those people at that protest group wanted to stand on a corner and all they wanted to do was hold signs, I said, I would have open carried and not allowed anyone to do anything. I said, but if one person in that group decides we're going to throw a rock through a window, I'm going to turn around, look at him, go, okay, good luck. You're on your own. And I'm going to leave. If they want to sit there and peacefully protest, I don't care. I may not necessarily agree with their views, but if they're being peaceful about it and they're not doing any damage to anybody, just let them do their thing. What, are you going to hurt your feelings a little bit? But again, once they start damaging someone else's property, I'm out. Good luck, people. May God be with you, because I'm not. I'm going back home where it's safe. But it's just that kind of stuff. And most people are like, yeah, that sounds like, guys, if you start picking and choosing who gets to protest peacefully, you're going to have problems down the road. If you're blocking traffic, not okay. If you're destroying buildings, not okay. If you're just holding signs, voicing your displeasure at a certain political bureaucracy or something, bro, I'm probably with you 99% of the time. Have at it. Let's freaking go, baby. But again, once the violence starts, I'm pretty small of stature. Someone could pick me up and throw me. I have to leave. I'm going to get tossed around. I'm going to get ragdolled. So I have to go.
You and Olivia
Brandon's
both.
much taller. Brandon's much taller than me. So he's got some reach in his punches. I'm going to get jacked up.
So
So
John,
Brandon's gonna have to put me on his shoulders and like run away.
my husband is always a little bit nervous about me going to protests because I'm also short, and he says, remember, you are a snatchable size. Someone could just snatch you. So he's like, you make sure you go with Faith, all right? So I like how you have your tall Brandon and I have my tall Faith. I also carry, if anybody's getting any ideas in the world out there.
That's right.
But you know,
Like the dude says, this aggression will not stand, man.
Brandon, you got another question, brother?
Well, just something that'd been on my mind, I guess. When you're thinking about like all these surveillance things that we were talking about, the drones, the flocks, all of it, a lot of people, their gut instinct is like, well, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not doing anything wrong. So why do I have to worry about all this flock stuff? And then you think back to whenever they locked the entire country down, and whether it was a Republican mayor or a Democrat mayor, Republican governor, Democrat governor, you were locked in your house, not allowed to go outside, do anything. I lived in an apartment complex, and I love telling the story. I couldn't go outside and play basketball by myself at the basketball hoop. That's how much things were like locked down. Couldn't go, like, you could walk around the neighborhood. That was it. And so could you imagine, like, if they had all this surveillance system in place, and then they're going to fine you just for driving, not for breaking any normal laws under normal times. Just you're trying to live your everyday life. You're trying to go to the gas station. You made too many trips to the gas station that day, they'll ticket you. They'll fine you. They'll try to find you and arrest you, or they'll just make up something. Like, I bring this up a lot because for a long time, conservatives were the freedom of speech on college campuses, freedom of speech everywhere, blah, blah, blah. And then people started criticizing Israel. And then all of a sudden you couldn't do that anymore. They take your rights away like that, bing, bang, boom. So when you're thinking about like data centers as well, because I know that's a different ball game, but some people rope it into like the spying apparatus. When you have a massive spying apparatus in place, all it takes is one change to the rule. And then, a group of class that wasn't a criminal all of a sudden becomes a criminal, and they have all your data. And so I just think people don't think about enough of like, okay, yeah, sure. Right now they might actually be using it for what they say they're going to be using it for. But imagine these tools in place with an actual socialist or an actual dictator in place, using the surveillance system that we helped create. And I don't know, it always makes me laugh when I think about what Donald Trump said when they were renewing the FISA, where he's like, I'm willing to sacrifice some of my personal freedoms for safety. And every founding father was just rolling in their grave that the president of the United States was willing to put that on the internet. I don't know, that's my thought.
We don't even have to imagine, Brandon, though,
Right.
because there are already stories of people like the grandma who did years in jail because facial recognition said she committed a crime that she didn't, right? There's already cases of people being wrongfully accused and convicted. Like, one of my biggest, I say irrational fear, but it's really not, just admitting to you in the internet, like, one of my biggest fears is that I will be framed for some heinous crime because, like, people are going to be able to download this and have my voice, have my face. Like, this technology is scary good. We're not talking about, old school facial recognition. This is advanced. And so, yeah. And supposedly I have friends that are lawyers, and they say it is pretty easy to prove if it's a deep cut, a deep fake or whatever, but it still could happen. And if you don't have money to fight something like that, guess what? You're in jail. And I live in a place where, like, I've been mistaken before. Someone was like, "Oh yeah, you came by my house," and it turns out it was just some other Hispanic lady with curly hair. Like, I could get mistaken for somebody, So it's just, I don't know. It is really, really scary, and it's already happening. Like, the worst of the worst is already happening.
I try to take the presidential powers as a good example for the surveillance state. So when the Supreme Court wanted to grant more powers to the president, well, maybe it's a president that you like now. What if it's a president that you don't like? Those same powers are going to be granted to that person. The surveillance state is the same way. Well, maybe you're not a criminal now, but think about the bad actors that are going to be making policy. It's very easy to take, well, we saw you, so we saw you walking by the camera right when a gunshot happened, so clearly it's you. It's very easy to make policy and make people feel better. Well, if you're not a criminal, then you have nothing to worry about. Well, until you do. So think about the worst people that are going to have access to this technology, and you make policy around that.
imagine during COVID, our county health department had where it was like a tip line where if somebody was having a party or was going out, imagine if during COVID they had this technology.
Right?
Imagine if they could very easily detect if you were in public without a mask. Imagine. Probably most of us, I don't know, Faith maybe, but I would not be here. Right? Like I just imagine. And so, and I even say this to even my like libertarian friends, like when we're talking about making changes to like whether it's national or local bylaws, I do the same thing where I'm like, okay, you're comfortable with this now because you like the chair, but imagine this power. Imagine if XYZ chair that you didn't like did this, right? We have to check it. We cannot go at the whim of leaders. Like that's why having a Lino mayor, what we do doesn't change. We stick to our principles. And we're going to, just like any other mayor or any other president, we're going to celebrate the libertarian leaning wins and we're going to criticize the tyrannical moves as well, right? You cannot you can't blow over that easy.
Yeah. So we have like two of the hot topics in Missouri right now. We have two amendments that are going to be on a ballot. One is eliminating the income tax, but all they're doing is shifting the tax to other things, sales, use, service taxes, whatever. They won't cut the budget, but they're trying to make this as a win. The big one that I find myself trying not to have a nuclear meltdown, and I've done a good job so far, is Amendment 4. They're changing they want to do IP reform. So to give you the short, dirty lowdown here, it's basically the people, if the people put something on the ballot, they have to get a majority in all congressional districts. But the legislative body gets to keep the same rules as they have now, which is 50% plus one. So I have my wife's aunt messaged me last night. She sent me this thing on this person's opinion on Amendment 4. And I said, I cannot in good conscience vote my power away to end run around the legislative body when it doesn't have the intestinal fortitude to do something because of fear of dark money. And so I start kind of relaying to her, like, you know, the Republican Party here in Missouri is addicted to lobby money to maintain their majority and all these things. And she's like, well, I'm scared of Sharia law and stuff. And I said, don't forget about one of the founders who said, tyranny will come under the guise of fighting a foreign enemy. And I said, our government is turning everything surveillance, its power in on the people. And that's a problem.
Yep.
And she, in the next message goes, that's why I've been telling everybody, you got to go out and you got to vote red because this can't happen. I'm like, okay, everything that I've just wasted all that energy and my thumbs typing this out. And then you say, we have to vote Republican. And I did not respond. And I told my wife today, I was like, on this morning on our drive into work, I told her about it. She's like, well, you could have said it this way. And I said all those things. The mind wasn't changed. I was not going to waste any more energy, maybe risk carpal tunnel to type out, did you not just read what I put in these last few, in this text thread here? And to your point, that is one of our biggest problems in Missouri is people are too focused on the letter behind an individual's name and not their principles. You can look at their voting record. You can go to the MEC and see all the PACs that donate to their campaign and what some of these lobbyist groups fight for. Like some of them don't want you to get rid of the personal property tax, and some of them don't want you to get rid of this, and they're donating to these people. I'm like, well, I don't trust you now because you're and we have a state rep, our most constitutional voting state rep came on this show right after he won his primary, and he didn't have an opponent in the general election, so he knew he was going to win a seat. He went to caucus. In the caucus, they do speed dating with lobbyists. So there will be a table of like 4 lobbyists and a group of 3 reps, and they have to go to each table, introduce themselves, and tell them what district they're from. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies that most of my state reps are going to have my best interests at heart. I feel like there's going to be a lot of campaign donations that are going to be shuffled to them, and suddenly they're voting the way the money wants them to. And so trying to get, because it's really easy to look at the Washington D.C. and how corrupt and awful it is. You go to Jeff City and you see a lot of people who are not reps or senators walking around in very nice clothes. They're all lobbyists. When it comes time to elect the majority floor leader, the Speaker of the House, the Senate pro tem, the lobbyists are going around and telling the others how to vote. Okay, so yes, DC is a dumpster fire being peed on by Godzilla. Jeff City is right below it.
Topeka's the same.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that spends any amount of time at the Capitol, and now listen, I have friends that are lobbyists. I mean, Faith's even worked as a lobbyist. There are some people where, like, it's truly like, and I've been approached before too. Like, there are some people where it's literally like a person that just doesn't have it in them to go fight Topeka every day, but the cause is worthwhile, right? So I'm not mad at individual lobbyists or small firms, right? But there's big money and big PACs and big lobbying firms. And half the time they maybe have an office in your state, but they're taking marching orders from some out of state place, you know? And so, yeah, it is pretty surprising when you realize like how tied in the lobbyists and the PACs are. And honestly too, like, they're smart, because sometimes it's not campaign donations. We've had a lobbying firm reach out to like us on like kind of libertarian leaning issues. And they just kind of want access to our members. Right. And they know that they can't give us cash. They know that, but they'll give us the venue. They'll give us food. They'll give us maybe alcohol if we're careful, you know? So like they're smart. They're very smart on how to get around those rules. And yeah, so tell me about this. I think I hadn't heard about the Second Amendment. So it's trying to make it easier for citizens to get stuff on the ballot, or it's trying to make it more difficult?
No.
Go ahead.
So
Brian.
right now, the legislature, if they want to change if they want to put a constitutional amendment through, they vote it through, and then it goes to the ballot, and it needs a 50+1. And then the same thing for an initiative petition. You get enough signatures, it goes to the ballot. It's 50+1. They want to make it where if a citizen initiative makes it to the ballot, it has to win every single congressional district. And that's basically a way of stopping it, because almost never do the Republicans and Democrats and the people of this state agree on anything. So like it'll pass, something will pass 6 out of 7 and then fail in St. Louis, or it'll pass, like it would have probably, like there are some initiatives that probably would have won the popular vote by 55%, and they'll lose now because a rural area will vote against it. They showed some map of like different constitutional amendments, because our abortion laws are constitutionally amendment or our initiative petition amendment. Marijuana is an initiative petition. The right to sports gamble was an initiative petition. I'm missing one other one, but there's a bunch of like really important things that were done with the initiative petition process that would have failed. Now, each one of those things individually has its own issues that needs worked out. But as a whole, without the initiative petition process, marijuana would still probably be illegal, because our state legislature cannot get their head out of the sand on anything with that. I mean, just we probably still wouldn't be able to sports gamble, because they can't ever decide as a unit who deserves what tax dollars for what thing. Yeah. And so
I want to point out that in Kansas, there is no such thing as citizens getting anything on the ballot. We do not have that power. The only things that we are allowed to do constitutional amendments on are things that Topeka first blesses. They get to choose what goes through. So you guys have to fight tooth and frickin' nail to make sure that you have that, because that is why we don't have cannabis. Because there was a time where cannabis had a 90% approval rating, which not a single legislator in Topeka had a 90%. So I always say more Kansans want cannabis than they want leaders, okay? And it will never go to the ballot because they know that it will win, right? So yeah, you guys I'm really eyeing Missouri, right? Like I'm eyeing to move my way over there someday. So like y'all gotta defend that till the death, because we don't have it here. There's no way for an initiative to get on the ballot in the state of Kansas. And it is why they have been able to stay so far behind on not just cannabis, a myriad of issues, but that's obviously the most glaring one.
Yeah, as an out-of-stater that doesn't have a leg to stand on here in Missouri, do not let them dilute your people power at all. Anything that is put on the ballot that dilutes the citizen power. If we had ballot initiatives in Kansas, this would be a different state. So don't, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm an expert on everything Missouri, but I can tell you just from what you told me, I would not allow that to go through. Don't let them dilute your power, because we have to fight tooth and nail to get anything done. It takes years for us to get a ballot passed. I mean, we fought hard in 2022 to not have government telling us what to do. That was an easy sell. Well, now it's on the ballot again in Kansas. We have a constitutional amendment in August that wants to change the way we get our Supreme Court, how they're appointed / elected. That's the conversation. And it's really scary to me, because people are low information voters, make up the bulk of voters across the country. And all it takes is the person that you were talking to, John, that, they got a postcard and that's what they're going to do because they got it from their party. And it's much more complicated than much more nuanced. And those conversations have to happen with people, because every time a state legislature puts up a constitutional amendment is to only take away power from the citizens. It is never to empower us. It is never to give us the things we ask for. It's always to dilute our power and to give them more power to tell us what to do. So I would encourage everyone, if the government should the government just say no, the government shouldn't. Vote no.
And good luck ever getting that power back. If you guys lose that amendment, I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer here, but if you lose, good luck ever getting that back. Because since I moved to Kansas, we've been trying.
I have to get on this because he stated it a couple times on the show, and I was like, yeah, that's plausible. But after really like sitting down and talking to some of my coworkers about the same issue, Brandon said, I think they're just trying to make sure all money funnels through them. It can't funnel through PACs to them and then have outside money interest flowing to the people. They want all the money. They want to capture all that money to make sure they stay in power. And after really like sitting down and thinking about it, like, yeah, I think Brandon's onto something. I think they want all the money filtering through them. And it's 100%. Real funny that, okay, so to Brandon's point, talking about Amendment 3, which was recreational marijuana, that out of, we got like what, Brandon, 80 something counties, 16 counties passed it. Okay. Now it is way too easy to change the Constitution in Missouri. And I would like that to cease. But I also think that the politicians and the people should be on the same level playing field. Now we have people making excuses saying, well, these bills have to go through a committee and have to be voted on. I'm like, yeah, if you see the trash that they pass every year, those go through a committee. They go through both changes. They get amended. They don't change the title to match the new changes, so it's automatically unconstitutional, and they'll pass it and the government will sign it into law. So whoopity-doo. You have nothing to say to me that goes, yes, I fully trust my legislative body to do whatever is best for me. No.
The committees in Kansas are farce. They've got their mind made up. They've got their talking points. By the time a bill has gotten to committee, it's either it's basically already been blessed, right? Like nothing goes through committee without party leaders blessing it. And we've had a Republican supermajority since like 93 or something. So yeah, like the committees, at least here in Kansas, for the most part, they already know what they're doing, right? Is just show, here's this beautiful bill. Oh, it passed. Imagine that. Must have great support. The ones that are gonna be even like cannabis or some of these other ones, they're not gonna even let the ones that are gonna be 50-50 in, right? Like it's all predetermined who's gonna vote where. And yeah, so the committee does nothing to help a bill get better.
So yeah,
I think that's why, sorry, Brandon.
Oh no, I was just gonna say they make the initiative petition process like basically where grassroots really doesn't stand a chance either. You've got such a short window to get such an enormous amount of signatures that it's always big money interests. Whether or not you agree with what they're pushing, but it is big money interest getting these ballot initiatives pushed through. Like the marijuana industry pushed through the Amendment 3, the gambling industry and FanDuel and all of those, they paid for the sports gambling. And so like it's not like the people have had like, we've got a good idea, we can get this across. No, it's 100% because the legislature was sick of all of the lobbyist money going to petition signers instead of going to them. That's my running theory on it.
I that's a solid theory. I'm going to say that's again. Now, if you go to the MEC site, it is not fun to try to traverse that and you try to look up a particular. But if you do go there, you will see all the names of the people who gave that PAC money, right? And when you look at enough of them, you start seeing the same names over and over again. And it's not like $25, $50. It's $5,000. It's $2,000. It's $1,000. And you just see their name over and over again. And you'll see, and then, it's so I guess another part of this history here, ladies, is that several years ago, we passed Clean Missouri, and Clean Missouri was to keep the big, like, wealthy people from affecting the outcome of the elections. It's really odd now because when you put it in a timeline, you get Clean Missouri, you get a bunch of PAC money, you get a Republican majority, and now the next thing they're trying to keep any money from coming to the people and instead filtering all to them. So it's really nice how this all just fell into place after Clean Missouri got passed. It was a play from the get-go, and I don't know. It's hard to get people because again, the research isn't easy. It's hard to get people to see this and really like to get in their minds to just turn it over a little bit and go, yeah, that is weird. Most people just go, well, it's still better that we have a Republican majority. And it's like, okay, so a funny story real quick, and then I'll let you guys talk. I swear to God. Years ago, 2016, I donated to the to the Libertarian Party. I got a call like 5 minutes later. I wish I could remember the gentleman's name that called me. And I was at work, so I said, hey, I'll call you after work. Cool. I call him back. We're having a conversation. And he's like, have you ever thought about running for an elected position? And I said, nope, not going to do it because I'm not intelligent enough for that type of position. And he said, have you been to the Capitol and hear those people talk? And I was like, geez Louise, dude, that's kind of harsh. And then when they were trying to get gold and silver passed in 2021, I sat in the gallery and listened to Democrats crying out about Nazi gold, Civil War coins, and MAGA coins. Not that, like, people, this is sound money. This is constitutional money. And they went on for an hour and a half. The Republican Speaker of the House let them go for an hour and a half, and then it just died because they ended the session, and that was it. All gone. So, and it's just funny because as these people were hashing this out back and forth, his voice just clicked in my head, and I literally heard his voice go, have you heard some of those people talk? I'm like, Jesus, this guy was dead on. He was not wrong at all.
I think that type of mentality that's happening in our national and state discourses is creating so much voter apathy that people disengage from the process altogether, which is one of the things I love and I preach about LOLA, is that we focus on our backyards. What can we do locally? What difference can we make locally? Because my voice at a city council meeting carries weight. Even lobbying, they didn't care what I said, much less my congressman who never even reply to emails. At the local level, you can really impact property taxes. You can impact appraisals. You can impact the budget. Our budget session is happening right now in Wichita and Sedgwick County. Olivia and I have spent the last few years really digging into how much can we get people to civically engage during the budget process. Because I promise you, whatever it is that you don't like about your city is handled during the budget process. The people that show up, where you put your, let's see, what does Becky say all the time? Where you put your money shows what your values are. So if you really care about parks or libraries or whatever, and you give the budget to police, then do we care about parks and libraries or do we care about police? And our voices make so much of a difference. And you don't have to be in LOLA to do that. I mean, we fought so hard against the ad valorem tax credit refund. The state of Kansas had been taking money from local municipalities for like, what was it, 20 years, Olivia? And not dispersing those funds back to us, because Big Daddy Kansas knows better what we need in Wichita than Wichita does. So after us raising hell for 3 years, they just canceled the law. Didn't give us any of the billions back. Just got rid of the law because we made a big stink. I think that means we showed them we're not going to sit down and let you do this to us anymore. Your voice at the local level matters more than anything else.
Yeah, that LAVTR, local ad valorem tax revenue, was straight up just wealth distribution. It was a super old thing on the books where supposedly they were taking a little bit from rural counties and urban counties, putting it together and then like redistributing it, right? Which was a terrible, terrible idea. Should have never passed to begin with, but they stopped paying us like 15, 20 years ago. And so we made a big stink about it. And this is where I get so frustrated with our Republicans, because sometimes we'll agree on a thing. So we agreed with our Republican county commissioners that this should end, but they were happy to let Topeka just close the fund. We wanted that money back. I want that money back in my county. You used to be able to go to your county and look up how much the state owes you. And what was it one time for Sedgwick County? I can't even remember. Tens of thousands of dollars. Meanwhile, every school is trying to pass a bond, every unincorporated, right?
More sales tax.
Like, cancel it, but give us our money back so we can at least have a break from taxes for a few years. But that's not what they did, right? The party that says they care about tax breaks had a chance and didn't. They let the state's basically deficit to us just disappear, right? It was wild. Sorry, that's very specific Kansas thing. I don't know if you guys have LAVTR there, but it's wild.
Not that I know of. Boy, I hope not. I've never heard of it before, so man, I'm really hoping not.
I know what rabbit hole you're going down tonight.
Yeah, I'm about to figure.
It's a scary one.
It might be a short rabbit hole. It might be, does Missouri have LAVTR? Nope. Okay, rabbit hole over. But I'm definitely going to check it out. So Amendment 5 is the no income tax. The way Missouri's trying to do it is awful. I mean, it's just about the worst plan you could possibly have, because it really is no plan. Like the Republicans are pitching it like a tax cut, or like a spending cut where they can cut. They're just saying it's going to eliminate your income tax and possibly your property tax. They don't budget for next year. It's $0.4 billion than it was this year, which in fairness, they came out and they're like, we wanted to spend $54 billion, but we're only spending $50.8 billion this time. So pat ourselves on the back for that. So I saw you comment on some libertarian stuff early on when it was first brought up about how Kansas doesn't have an income tax and how you do.
Yeah. Yes. I was kind of hoping I'd go last on this, but so I'll just clarify. I have lived in Texas most of my adult life. Texas does not have an income tax. Kansas does, to the point where when we were moving here, we had like our family financial mentors and advisors were like, are you sure you want to go to an income tax state? And so that is where like my thinking comes from. I will just preface this entire conversation with, I don't have the same opinion, I think, of for sure the Missouri guys, and I'm not sure about Faith. So I would love for you guys to go first. And if you still want to hear my opinion at the end, but I do want to respect that this is your show and it's Missouri. But yeah, to clarify, Kansas definitely does. Texas, where I grew up, does not.
Well, for me, it's just all about how much net am I paying in taxes. And I've said to John on this show a few times that like, I'm really not trying to like think about it from a super personal level, because for me, yeah, if you got rid of the income tax for like the agorists, for like those who have like a decent idea of how to trade, you can skirt most of your taxes altogether. Like if you're looking for the best way to get around the taxes, eliminating the income tax for sure is it, because you could go on Facebook, message someone who has something you want, pay them in cash. Like you're getting around a lot of taxes that way. But for me, it's all about, at the end of the day, like whether or not it's property tax, income tax, sales tax, whatever, how much money am I paying total? Like how much is being siphoned off from me, obviously outside of like from the federal government, but from the state and local governments combined, what's my tax burden at? And so like I'm okay. Like I'm not opposed to eliminating an income tax. Trust me, if the whole bill was we're going to cut spending and when we do there won't be an income tax. Fantastic. That's great. That's not what they're doing at all. They're raising the budget and trying to eliminate the income tax and have not given an inkling on what things they might even raise the sales tax on. And so that's for me my biggest problem with this particular bill is that we're handing an awful legislature that pretty much all they do is regulate. It's a bunch of Republicans that all they do is regulate. And so I don't trust them to come up with a sufficient plan that's going to be the best for the people on raising these sales taxes. They're beholden to the lobbyists. So I think whichever lobbyists get to them first with the most amount of money is going to have their businesses and entities are going to be saved from the income tax, and everyone else is going to have to front that burden. And so that's where I'm at on it, is like, I just want to go with whatever plan is going to make me pay the least amount of taxes. So I don't know. I don't have I'm not opposed to it. I would love to live in a state with no income tax. I just want a state and county that spends less money.
Yeah, well, it's where they transferred those taxes to. We have found in Kansas, they rob Peter to pay Paul all the time. They talk about property tax relief, and then they want to vote in a sales tax. And then the schools aren't getting the money from the state from the taxes that we already pay from our property taxes. So they got to do another school bond. So all they're doing is property tax relief is one of the number one issues in Kansas. Do you think Kansas legislators gave us any property tax relief this session? No. We got a Charlie Kirk bill. We got a name a bank this. We got a this and this other dumb stuff. We didn't get anything that we actually cared about. We certainly didn't get cannabis. So it's really frustrating to hear the tax double talk, because they'll talk a good game, but at the end of the day, my taxes aren't going down. Your taxes aren't going down. Somebody's getting tax relief, but it's not the people.
So here's a big thing, and this is a couple sticking points, and I'll kind of build off of what Brandon was saying. So Missouri has the Hancock Amendment, and that amendment to the Constitution says if you're going to raise taxes by so much, it has to be approved by the people. Part of this Amendment 5 is suspending the Hancock Amendment, or suspending these types of protections. It started out at 3 years. They moved it up to 5 when they amended the bill. So you don't get a choice on where they're going to move the money. And I think the biggest sticking point to me, and let me add this too, there are some Republicans in this state that generally I see eye to eye on a lot of issues with them, because they seem to understand the state constitution and the U.S. Constitution. So we can see eye to eye. These same people, it's like they took their brains and put it in a box and they're not thinking, and Brandon and I and Tom and several others of us have said the same thing. Not one. You can go along and you can challenge them on the social medias, on the interwebs, and no one says, we have a plan. No one comes out and says, we have some fraction of a plan. It's nothing. It's the trust me, bro mentality. Sorry, I don't trust you, bro. You have shown me they have, because I think Brandon's made this point before too, that if they had a plan and they had something figured out, I think they would be blasting it all over the place. Like, look at what we're going to do. They have nothing. They've done nothing. They've said nothing. And so even to those people I would generally agree with, I'm like, someone needs to take you out for a day of electroshock therapy just to get you back on track, because clearly you've lost your way. You've put it in 4-wheel drive and you're going off-road. I don't know what you're doing. You don't know where you're going. But yeah, so on Amendment 4 and Amendment 5, this year, as far as I've been paying attention to Missouri politics, I've seen so many more people from grassroots, or people that really go in and dig into like where the money comes from and all this stuff. They're the ones out in front of this going, hey, gee, guys, look at all the outside money that's funding this Amendment 5. Yep. And look at all this stuff that's happening with Amendment 4. And it seems like the diehard, not to degrade my wife's aunt, but I'm afraid of Sharia law and the radical liberal, the radical left. And it's like, dude, I'm way more concerned about what the Trump administration, my governor, and these other lunatics who seemingly bow down to, if their party's in power in DC, they have to, for some reason, go out and proclaim how awesome they are. I'm way more worried about them than a Muslim group coming to Owensville and going, we're going to declare Sharia law. No, they won't, because there's good old boys everywhere with guns, and there's going to be barrels sticking out of windows everywhere, and those people are going to lose interest, and they're going to leave. And it's just trying to get people to understand that the biggest threat is not from their neighbor, it's from their elected officials. Mm-hmm. And they get us infighting. They get us fighting each other over, there are lifestyle choices that I don't agree with. But would I rather battle over that or some jackwagon who wants to stick cameras everywhere and track my movements? I'm going to fight that guy over someone who's made a lifestyle choice that I don't necessarily agree with. I'm going to combat the parties who have the most money and the most power to make my life a living, miserable hell over someone who chooses. I'm just going to go out on the far deep end here. Just excuse my dark humor, but someone decides to go marry their tree in the backyard. There will be people who will be way more upset about the person that's marrying the tree rather than the flock cameras, the data centers, and the Patriot Act and all that stuff. And that's what bothers me a lot.
I'm way more worried about the surveillance state and the socialist state than I am about any of the other things. And we're closer to not democratic socialism, just socialism in some states than we are to some of the other things. I'm curious if anybody wants my take.
Let's hear your take on income tax.
First, I want to ask this is how you know I trust you guys. If they come for me. Anyway, no, I'm not afraid. I have a question about the Hancock Amendment. Is that, so they have to get permission to raise income tax, property tax, sales tax, all tax?
Any type of tax.
It's pretty much any type of tax. Yeah, so
by a certain percentage?
I think it's like, I don't remember. To give you a brief example, a gas tax hike was on the ballot 3 times, and it failed all 3 times because it was going to raise it at 12.5 cents total.
Ooh.
So so because of that, they had to ask the people. The people were like, no. So what they did is they went back in, because we had this beautiful Second Amendment Preservation Act bill. They got hijacked in the Senate because they came up with a bill that raised the gas tax 2.5 cents a year for 5 years. And they worked their way around it in 2 ways, because they did it at 2.5 cents a year instead of total. So they didn't need a vote of the people. And because if you keep all your receipts from all the gas stations, you can send them in and get reimbursed. So they're like, see, people can get reimbursed, so we didn't steal it from them. So they found a nice little loophole and they passed it themselves.
What's
and
the
so
data
they
around how
started
many
the
people did
Hancock
that?
Amendment.
Don't let Bates eye roll fool you. That girl drives a Tesla. Okay, so here we go.
Which I have to pay more in Kansas for having an electric car
It's
because
true,
I
it's
don't
true.
pay the gas tax. They charge me more taxes. In
So
property.
it sounds like the Hancock Amendment is over a certain amount, like maybe over 10% or something. If it's a big jump, they have to get your permission, which is fair. And it definitely is concerning that they would want to suspend that. But I can say now, as an economist, because I'm part of the Foundation for Economic Education's Policy and Economic Fellowship right now. So new thing I'm able to say. So as an economist, when it comes to like, you are not in control of how much money they take out of your income tax. It automatically comes out of your paycheck. You are not in control of it. It happens regardless. It happens if you make $2 on a paycheck or $2,000 on a paycheck. You are in no control of it. Now, these other things that you guys are talking about, coming from an economist, sales tax, gas tax, all that stuff, I fully understand the concern that they would beef that right up, right? But you're actually more in control of those things. Now, would you have to get real creative? Probably, right? Depending on your budget and what you drive, right? But like I said, Faith got a Tesla. I pointed that out on purpose, right? There's cheaper electric cars too, okay? So you're in more control of some of those other things. And that is an economic fact, right? When they take your income, we're not even the generation that gets to like hand over our taxes, right? They just take it, right? So you are in control of rebates, and I don't love a rebate or a tax, but like you're more in control of those other things that they might increase, right? So that's one point I want to make from an economic standpoint. And then I want to give a very real example from a friend of ours. So Faith and I, through the LOLA network, are lucky enough to have someone who lives in Argentina. She lived in Argentina before Malay and is living through Argentina's libertarian Malay. And so we interviewed her not too long ago. And she tells this great story about like her mom actually worked for the Argentinian version of the IRS. So one of the first things that happened is her mom lost her job. Right. And so she had to, as a good, Latina girl would do, you're helping your parents. Right. And so we asked her about that. And she said that because of them not having any taxes, well, hardly any, I'm not sure if it's 100%, but they are keeping, in her own words, we were like, well, how is it, with your parents not working and a lot of the country not working because they work for the government? How is it for you personally? And she said, I am keeping so much of my paycheck that I can help my mom. And it's not a big deal because I am keeping that much of my paycheck. Now that wouldn't happen in Missouri, unfortunately. You wouldn't see that big of an increase, right? But that is the freedom that I'm talking about. That is the freedom that I had in Texas. And to one of your commenters' point, maybe I don't really have anything to compare it to because like never having it and then changing it and having to pick up the pieces, right? That's two different things. But like, if I could choose the next time I leave, because I don't super want to stay in Kansas the rest of my life if I don't have to, I will be looking at a state with income tax. I will be looking, or without income tax, and I will be looking at a state with cannabis. These are things that are important to me, right? I want to keep as much of my money as I can, and I will sacrifice and I will adjust, right? I've already adjusted. When I found out what was in our food, I made big sacrifices to raise as much of it as I can. I realize not everyone can do that, right? Not everyone can buy electric or live electric, but that is my take on it. Just, again, I'm someone that does not compromise my principles. My principles are I want as much of my money as I can, and I want to be in control of that money. And the option that gives me the most control of where my paycheck is going would be no income tax. And you guys can send me hate mail if you like. I'll put my address in the comments. That's all I have. And I also do not get to vote on this. I don't have a horse in this race, but that is your neighbor's view, my view of what's going on.
No, I get it. My thing is, if our representatives and senators could prove to us that they are serious about cutting their spending and they had a plan, let's go. But they're not. I have a feeling that spending could very well increase, and just going to find, because like our friend Tom, right? He installs water softener systems and water treatment systems. And right now he doesn't have to charge his customers a service tax. Now, and that's another problem. When I look at it from people who don't have to charge a service tax, there's a very good chance now he's going to have to add more time and labor on his part, because now he's going to have to add a service tax. Is he going to have to get a different CPA? Is he going to have to buy software? So now you're kind of adding a cost to him that he's got to recoup from the customers. And it's like, if you guys were really serious about cutting spending, I would be in favor of this so much. But that's what scares me. They have there's no like example of them slowing down.
But that's like the guy that's like, I want a dragon for my birthday, but he'll settle for like whatever, a dog or something. There is you're still working within the confines of government. There's never going to be a perfect bill, ever.
Right.
And your friend, there are a million other economic indicators that could cause him to have to make a really difficult decision in his business. You are either moving towards keeping more of your paycheck or handing it over blindly. And in this case,
right, but small business owners then now have to charge 3 times as much. Not 3 times as much, but their sales tax is going up 3 times. So then that's going to, it's just going to have ripple effects on small businesses. And
there's a million indicators. When I had a small business and they wanted to up the not UBI, what do we call it in the States? The minimum wage. There was a time where Texas was looking at increasing the minimum wage, and I had a small marketing firm with like a couple of high school and college kids full time. But if they would have increased, I was paying them whatever the state minimum wage was, like the 7 or whatever. They were going to increase it just a little bit, and we did the math. I was going to have to fire one of them. And I would have made sure that I was following the law, obviously. But I would have had to get rid of one of them. So there's a million other, having a business is a risk, period. Right? Like it just is. There's a
Right.
just
But
you
we're
vote on this doesn't mean you're not going to have another unseen consequence from it.
right, but we're talking about a direct one that we can see coming. We're talking about one that and not to like, I don't know about Texas in particular, but when you look at Alaska, they don't have an income tax because they tax the oil producers. Vegas or Nevada doesn't have one because they heavily tax gambling. Like I don't know if Texas taxes oil higher, and so they don't have a need for a higher sales tax. But again, the whole point would be like, sure, I'm getting some of my money back, but then now I can't go spend it because you've tripled the sales tax on that. And in Missouri in particular, this bill states that it's cutting income tax from the highest earners first. And so this is a direct shift from the upper earners to the middle earners.
But when
Yeah,
you're
so they're
able to
not even doing
again, economic basics, when you're cutting, even though I don't love cutting it top down, right? I don't love that. But even when you're cutting it from the people that have more income, it will eventually trickle down to you. Again, not my favorite, but those people are going to go put money in your economy, right? And if I know that Alaska taxes oil, or I know that Vegas taxes casinos, I'm not going to go open a casino there, right? But I can go and live there and have my more income in my bank, you know? So I don't know. These are just...
Well, and that's where Olivia and I disagree, because I think 50 years of Reaganomics has proved that trickle down doesn't work. But especially in Kansas, if big employers, wealthier people, they're not reinvesting it in their businesses. They're not raising wages. They're buying more properties. They're taking on more debt. They're paying money back to their shareholders. So I think if we look at trickle down, it shows that it doesn't work. Am I saying that income tax versus no income tax? I honestly, I'm not as knowledgeable as Olivia, but I definitely don't like how they're cutting from the top first, because all that's going to do is hurt the missing middle class and lower class.
And maybe I'm just too much of a stickler. Maybe I've been hanging around Tom March too much. But our problem in Missouri is that our legislative body doesn't follow the Constitution. And it literally says, you know, the laws will be applied equally. Everything will be applied equally. So if you decide I'm going to cut from here first and everybody else has to wait, that's unconstitutional. And I'm like, no. Now, again, there's another factor in here, and we only got 3 minutes. This sucks. But anyway,
come back.
The thing is too, is that there's no guarantee the income tax goes away. And also our state, treasurer said that next year we're facing a $1.7 billion shortfall. So they want to institute. And here's been another part of my thing all along. So with the gas tax, Biden was going to come into office. We knew that there was possibly going to be some energy things where like they were going to make gasoline, petroleum prices are going to go up because of fiscal policies of certain presidents. Okay. And so we're like, this is a bad time to do it, because we're looking at especially our foreign policy. If we decide Russia and Ukraine or another Middle Eastern conflict, gas is going to go up. So do we really want to put a tax on people right now? And they're like, heck yeah, we do. Why wouldn't we? And so what drives me nuts is the legislative body looks at the economy like it's static, like there's no big swings.
Right.
And lately, between inflation and everything else, it's like, guys, you guys are acting like everything's fine with the economy. The economy is not okay right now. Because our federal government can't stop printing money and create, funding genocide, or however you want to look at it. How do we know that this policy this kind of pie in the sky thing that you want to do is even going to work out when the feds are out of control right now? And so to me, there's so much instability and everything else that's like, I can't just put my faith and trust behind the legislative body that has proven itself to be unconstitutional 90+% of the time. All right.
But you don't have
you
a
guys, yep, you do have a choice, and that's what's nice. You can vote, right?
Yeah.
So you guys have been so awesome and great guests this evening. I really appreciate you all coming on and joining us and giving us kind of a Kansas perspective, because even though those dirty Jayhawkers, they kind of win in basketball and stuff like that, but it's not always the best. But real quick, do you guys have a website or anything that you can plug for us before we go?
I would say I'm pretty easy to find on social media. We don't have, like, of course, the ladiesofliberty.org is our main website, like for the global movement. As far as me personally, pretty easy to find if you spell my last name right. There's actually 2 of me, so make sure you find Olivia Hayes, Kansas. I'm in all the places. My job is social media, so I'm very easy to find. So just make sure you spell that last name right, and that I'm the Kansas one and not my sister-in-law, and we're good to go. Happy to answer any questions or debate literally any Liberty topic.
Don't forget to pitch our podcast.
Oh yes, and Faith and I actually we have a podcast as well. We're in the middle of kind of like changing our format, so like we not sure like when the next one will be. We need to get together. We're just so busy right now. But our podcast is ICT. As in ICTEA. So ICT is the call sign for Wichita, and then T as in spilling the tea on government spending. So it's a lot of fun. And yeah, we were monthly there for a while, but then we just got really busy. We're both very active. Faith's very active with like the DFLOC movement. I'm very active, obviously, with Lola, and I'm on the LNC. So it's just been a little bit, but hopefully we'll like to have you guys on soon. And yes, you can look for us in all the places that podcasts are available.
And we're happy to come back anytime.
Yeah, I think we had a good enough discussion tonight that we're going to have to definitely have you guys on again at some point down the road. So again, to all of those who watch or listen to the Missouri Liberty Report, again, we greatly appreciate you, and go out and support Lola here. You know, Ladies of Liberty Alliance, go out and look for them and support them and their messaging, because if they're getting stuff worldwide, that's kind of cool. All right. Folks, that's going to do it for this evening's broadcast. And don't forget to come right back here next Tuesday night at 6:30 p.m. for another edition of the Missouri Liberty Report.